What is up, everybody? We are starting a new series, a summer series only for the summer, and that is because this is Best Ball. Starting with Best Ball 101, Best Ball is the awesome method of drafting where you do the best part of fantasy football. That is the draft only. Everybody loves drafting. You get to draft as many times as you want. However, you're paying for those drafts. It is a little bit like gambling. But, anyways, I love doing it. We're jumping right into things. We are on the DraftKings app. We are in a draft that starts in about 1 minute. So in 1 minute, I will run down best ball for you looking at this contest that I have entered. Okay, there are three main platforms to drafting best ball. This is on DraftKings. There's also Underdog and Drafters. The general rules of best ball is you draft and then that's it. You're done. The system, the platform, auto starts your top lineup every week on its own by itself. All you have to do is follow the roster and scoring sizes. So you can see basic standard scoring for fantasy football on DraftKings here. They got some bonuses for 300 plus yard passing games, that sort of thing. But the lineup requirements: 1 quarterback, 2 running back, 3 wide receiver, 1 tight end, 1 flex, and 12 bench spots. So that's all you need to know for drafting, except this is also a tournament style. The standard style is a tournament, meaning that you draft, and in weeks 1 to 14, you're in a pool of 12 players. You want to come top place out of that round 1, week 1 to 14. Then each of the next 3 weeks are tournament style in smaller pools. Only the top 2, then top 1 advance. And then all of the money is in the final week 17. Let's jump right into the draft. Already at my pick. Now I am drafting in the 8th spot here. Let's take a look at the draft board as we move forward and things. All right, so standard drafting in this kind of DraftKings format, wide receivers, because it is full PPR, full point per reception, wide receivers are king, although the top running backs quickly dry up in this kind of format. So, the whole point, the whole way to succeed in best ball is roster construction. You want to have strong roster construction. Out of your 20 roster spots, you want to have, let's say, 2 to 3 quarterbacks, 2 to 3 tight ends, 4 to 7 running backs, and 6 to 9, 6 to 10 wide receivers. If you draft wide receivers early, that means you want to slow down on them and switch over to running backs. Here I am on the clock at the 108. And I'm just going to go right ahead by these rankings. It's tough to turn down a top receiver like Justin Jefferson. I've been drafting him a lot so far this year. So we'll go ahead and take Justin Jefferson with the first pick here using the rankings. I will say these are rankings by Establish the Run, an excellent fantasy football resource. So going back to the draft board, so this year, a lot of top running backs go off the board in the top 24 picks, the first 2 rounds, and there's some pretty good wide receiver value to be had. However, I still think you want to end up with a top wide receiver in this full PPR format. So now what I'm looking to do is probably take a running back here in the 2nd round. Otherwise, the top running backs will really dry up. But there's generally a good running back available in this spot. However, if the value turns out that there's a running back or a receiver that I like, then I'll definitely go for a receiver. So we've got pretty chalky so far. That's a real early George Pickens. Somebody trying to stack CeeDee Lamb and George Pickens early. George Pickens probably doesn't come all the way around. Let's see. We just had Derrick Henry off the board. So now in the rankings, I'm not a big fan of... I do really like Drake London. Not a big fan of taking Devon Achane here. You know what? Let's change things up and draft Omarion Hampton. I do not have a lot of Omarion Hamptons, and I want to get a running back to sort of even things out and then let the board come to me. So let's take Omarion Hampton here. I have not drafted him much this year. So now I've got a top wide receiver and a top running back. I did go a little bit off the board in terms of my rankings, but you want to look at your rankings, then you also want to look at the average draft position. Generally in best ball, if you just draft by ADP, by average draft position, taking the guys that, are values at ADP based on who the board is drafting, and then keeping in mind your roster construction, you'll have a more or less competitive roster. That's the most important thing to think about. And so that means roster construction all really affects how you're drafting. So that means if you take an early quarterback, the earliest one is Josh Allen, who tends to go in about round 3. maybe there's some better values in like Lamar Jackson, who's more of like a round 5 pick this year, which is probably pretty good value. So if you take that kind of quarterback, you probably want to draft just one quarterback much later on in the draft and be done. So whereas if you draft your first quarterback in like round 9 or 10, you probably want to draft 3 quarterbacks overall, and then you're drafting them all late, meaning you're stacking your roster earlier with wide receivers and running backs, perhaps an early tight end. The same sort of quarterback strategy generally applies to tight ends. It is generally good to get your queue lined up here so you're not on the spot. If Trey McBride, for some reason, makes it back to me, I would definitely take him here. So looking at, now let's go back to the draft board. So the number one thing to think about is just roster construction, like I said, and then you can go ahead and draft it by ADP. This draft here is a special fast draft on DraftKings. Generally, you can do fast drafts, which on DraftKings are 30 seconds to make your pick, or slow drafts, which you have an 8-hour clock, and you can do those, over the course of a couple weeks. This is a super speed draft, as they call it on DraftKings, where you only get 20 seconds per pick. This is the standard for Underdog, which I will do another draft in this Best Ball 101 series coming up later this week as we cover each of the 3 main drafting platforms. So it's my pick coming up again here. And I generally just want to take the best value. I'm not looking at quarterback or tight end in this spot, given that the top 2 tight ends are gone. And Josh Allen's already gone if I would consider him, which I probably wouldn't have. There goes Jeremiah Love. He would have been my pick. And so I can do something, interesting. I could try and I'm looking at probably Zay Flowers. I don't want to take Garrett Wilson this early. I could go Zay Flowers, or I could go Ladd McConkey for my Chargers stack, and I think I will do that. So now I've set up an early stack of the Chargers. I expect the Chargers to be good this year, and maybe it's a little bit slightly early for Ladd McConkey. Oh, there goes Garrett Wilson. So the next most important thing after roster construction is just drafting by ADP or ADP values or your rankings is stacking. Stacking is critical to best ball. And what that means is you want to have the same players, a few players on the same team to draft. So already I've got a stack here of Amarian Hampton and Ladd McConkey. Generally, that means I'll probably look to add Justin Herbert at some point to get the quarterback as well. You really want to have your quarterback stacked with your wide receivers or even running back, but it's already nice to have a team stack here. So I was hoping to get Zay Flowers. Now we've come around and I've got some reasonable values here, but I might just go ahead and take the next best, the 3rd top tight end available. He's my next highest ranked player. And so let's go ahead and take Holston Loveland. This is a reasonable value at this time of year to take him. He's the clear tight end 3 this year in drafts, and expected, I guess expected, you can say, by his round 4 draft capital, but looking like he could, in terms of target share on the Chicago Bears, have a breakout this season. Malik Neighbors, who just went, would have been my other pick. Malik Neighbors is probably a reasonable value in round 4 here as your wide receiver 3. So I do like this pick. I really like the way that this team right beside me is shaping up. But I plan to play it a little bit safer, considering I already have perhaps a bit of a risky running back as my running back 1 here. Malik Neighbors might not even start the season playing. He could be out for 6 weeks. Who knows how long it'll take him to get up to speed. Josh Jacobs here also fell big time after his accusations of assault and worse. Who knows how legal systems work out in the NFL. If he does end up playing this year, then he'll be a great value for fantasy football in this round 4 spot. He was going more around round 2 or 3 before all that criminal activity came out on his part. So for my team here at the 8th spot, now that I've taken a tight end, I'm looking to take one later tight end, probably stacking with whichever one of my quarterbacks that I end up with, and that's it. So I can pretty much ignore the tight end position for a while. Maybe I'll look to build a stack with another Charger, thinking about Rondé Gadsden, or maybe TJ Hawkinson if I end up with a Kyler Murray stack to go along with my Justin Jefferson here. If you're looking at some of these teams, this is now Burrow as a quarterback 2. You can see this team is clearly trying to stack quarterback with wide receiver 1, Jamar Chase. That's a bit of a reach for Joe Burrow. But yeah, I mean, that is it can be a problem going too hard at your stacks. You don't want to make big ADP reaches when just to complete a stack. And as you can see from my rankings, I mean, I've still got Joe Burrow would have been down somewhere around here. Certainly from my rankings here, Lamar Jackson, more of the rushing quarterbacks, Lamar Jackson, Jaden Daniels, Drake May would have been quarterbacks up ahead here. I am not going to be looking at quarterback at this spot as well, because I just took an early tight end. It means I probably don't want to take an early quarterback. I'm looking to keep adding to my wide receiver room unless there's a really good value at running back. The only top running back available on my list here would be Baishal Tutin. Again, expected to have a big breakout, but not guaranteed. So now we've got a Lamar Jackson pick, an unstacked Lamar right now. And so given that, I want to keep shoring up my wide receiver room since PPR wide receivers are very important. I'll just take my next best wide receiver on the board. There's also good value here at ADP with Jameson Williams. At pick 56, you can see that was good value based on his ADP of about 53. As we continue on in the draft, yeah, so this team with 4 running backs, I mean, it's an interesting strategy. They're the only team that's gone super running back heavy early on, but having Rome Odunze as your wide receiver 1 is risky to say the least. Again, I really want to hammer top pass catching players in this PPR, this wide receiver heavy format. As we move around, coming back to me at the turn, if there's good wide receiver value, I will take one. I'm not looking to take Caleb Williams here this early. If Tutin is still here, I'll take Tutin. And it looks like he is. Wow, that's a very early Quinton Johnston. I was about to say Quinton Judkins. Bleh. Let's go ahead and take the top running back on the board. I don't want to take Jaden Daniels, because I don't have the stack here. So now it's a reasonable time to add another a running back at excellent ADP value. His ADP average draft position was more like a full round earlier. He was going up at about this Lamar Jackson slot, pick 55. So to get Tutin at pick 65 is some real good value. So now I've got two running backs relatively early, 2 RBs in the first top six picks of the draft, which is not bad. I could definitely basically say that, all right, I expect these 2 guys to be good all year now, and then keep hammering wide receiver. I could look at trying to get this Colston Loveland stack at this point, and take Caleb Williams. However, the other 2 receivers, the top 2 receivers on Chicago, are already gone. And DeAndre Swift is already gone, the pass-catching running back for Chicago. So if I took Caleb Williams, I'd really just have a stack of Loveland and Williams. We'll see if I want to reach for Caleb Williams here. You can see his ADP is 71, so it wouldn't be a reach. I doubt he does fall to me, but I'll add him to the queue just in case here. In terms of wide receivers, I'd be very happy with at pick 80 to add another wide receiver and then start to think about my quarterback. So if I already start to look ahead, yeah, see there Caleb Williams goes, making the stack with Luther Burden here. So a reasonable pick. This team is the only team that doesn't have a running back yet. So they're lined up to be a 0 RB team. They'll be able to start hammering running backs. Now that I expect they're done with quarterback, taking basically 2 early quarterbacks, around 5 and around 6 pick, along with an early tight end. So now they can just hammer the skill positions. But yeah, we'll see how their team looks later. All right, we have a complete reach and random draft of Justin Herbert. This team has no reason to draft Justin Herbert, considering they do not have a stack. Perhaps they're going to try and look at a late Trey Harris or something like that. So that's always frustrating when that happens, but well, it happens. Can't let it affect you. So that kills my chance at a Chargers stack. I could start to think about maybe getting a Jacksonville player. Jacoby Myers tends to go pretty late. He would be the last Jacksonville receiver. I could aim for Kyler Murray later on. You really want to have your quarterbacks stacked. I could also aim for a Jared Goff. However, if Jalen Hurts gets back to me, I will definitely draft him, because that value for Jalen Hurts at this point is just too good. A rushing quarterback like this. then I would only take one other quarterback. Then I would just look at basically my Justin Jefferson stack, or perhaps a Jared Goff stack. You can see the rankings. He's clearly the next positional non-running back or wide receiver here. But I really like Jalen Hurts this year. I think the value is too good to pass up. So I will go ahead and take him. And I consider Jalen Hurts, he's a rushing quarterback. So now this is going to be an interesting draft. I plan on just taking one more quarterback and one more tight end. I'll try and get a good stack on my quarterback. I'm going to aim for, no longer Trevor Lawrence, since there he goes again. That makes sense with the Parker Washington stack here. I'll aim to pick up a stack of Jameson Williams. Looking at Jared Goff, probably more so in my pick 104 in round 9, or Kyler Murray 104 or 113. So I'm not going to take a quarterback here. I'm definitely not going to take a tight end. I'm probably looking at receiver at this pick, and that means I'm on the clock. Who's the next best receiver? It is still much too early to take Jordan Addison, and I don't want to take another tight end. So in fact, given that, I will just take my top available running back and take Rico Dowdle here. So now I'm looking to really slow down a running back. This is actually, ideally he's a pass catching running back this year. Again, just going by my draft. I would have liked Alec Pierce, but it's a little bit risky with the injury. He had offseason ankle surgery. It's unclear if he'll want to start the season right away. So after signing his new big contract, he was the top wide receiver available. Indy needed to sign him. He'll get a lot of deep balls, but he's definitely going to be unreliable early in the year, and you never know what's going to happen with these injuries. So that's why I sort of shored up this running back position. The running backs are really going to start to fall off. This is definitely fewer fewer wide receivers than I would normally like to see at this spot in the draft. But there it goes. And I definitely want to also pick up some sort of stack for Jalen Hurts. Their wide receiver 2 perhaps is going to be Mekhi Lemon. So he's already gone. I can get him around for my stack, which means I'm really going to look at Dallas Goedert as my tight end too. Here you see Dallas Goedert at draft ADP of 121. I may need to take him at my 113 slot as well. We will see. Otherwise, I'm going to have to look at taking wide receiver 3 or tight end 2 on Philly, because like I said, you really do want to end up with a stack. Now would be a great spot to take Jordan Addison. I could stack him with Justin Jefferson. I'd also be very happy with Jaden Reed. If we keep an eye on my time here, where am I? Am we already at my pick? No, I'm up in 2 picks, so I can keep adding. Oh, there goes the 2 wide receivers that I would have liked. So I'm not on the clock yet. So maybe I could just go ahead and take Kyler Murray here, and then plan to take wide receiver as my next pick, unless there is a receiver to take. And at receiver, I would be happy with basically any of these guys. So let's go ahead and we'll just take Kyler Murray. I'll complete my quarterback position. One thing I should have checked first is if I'm only going to have 2 quarterbacks, I don't want them to have the same bye. But here's my roster. Thankfully, I got to a week 10 with Jalen Hurts and week 6 with Kyler Murray. So I'm completely done at quarterback now. I've got my Justin Jefferson, Kyler Murray stack. Unfortunately, I wasn't able to add Jordan Addison to that. I could definitely now look to either take Dallas Goedert or Hawkinson, TJ Hawkinson on Minnesota to complete my quarterback tight end stack there. So I'm not going to take Dallas Goedert. That would be a bit of a reach for Dallas Goedert. If he swings around to me at the 128 in round 11, I will go for him. Now I just have to take a wide receiver here. So I'm basically looking at whoever's next on my board. And thanks to Dalton Kincaid being drafted, I'm just going to take my next top wide receiver, which you can see here is Xavier Worthy, who is also a wide receiver value. So let's go ahead and draft Xavier Worthy. Looking at the split here, 2 quarterback, 3 running back, 4 wide receiver, 1 tight end, I need to keep hammering wide receiver. Because if you go back, and I still have this open here in this other slot, looking at the way the contest works. Sorry, let's go to the rules and scoring. In terms of our lineup, 1 quarterback, 2 running backs, 3 wide receivers, 1 tight end, 1 flex. That is what is going to be your starting lineup. So this starting lineup of 9 roster spots. No, 8 roster spots. I'm a dummy. 8 starting, 12 on the bench. That's it. So your top 8 out of your 20 players only slotted into position, of course, is what you score with. Those are what make your starting lineup. So what this means is, in this PPR format, you probably want this flex to be a wide receiver every time, ideally. So you would really want to end up, I want to end up with, 8 or 9 wide receivers, because the mid-tier to lower tier guys are going to score more on average as wide receivers than running backs, just because of that pass catching. And they also have this potential for bonuses. I would say a random 100-yard receiving game, getting this 3-point bonus, is much more likely for a mid or later round wide receiver than a random 100+ yard rushing game. This is the full point breakdown that you see here. This is why another reason you get the rushing TDs for quarterbacks. Another reason I really want a Jalen Hurts. So if I go back, look at the board now, so you can see the quarterbacks really start to fly off the board. Now that's Jordan Love, Tyler Shuck, and Baker Mayfield have gone. The last quarterback here I'd really be happy with is Malik Willis, and then there's a huge drop-off. Then you're looking at the guys who are probably not going to get you many points. Let's go back to the board here. So I did say I would probably complete the stack with Dallas Goedert if he comes to me. So let's throw him in here, and then I would definitely just keep hammering the wide receiver. If Goedert does go, that's okay, and I'll look to get my second tight end as TJ Hawkinson. And so Mark Andrews, we had a Mark Andrews pickup because of this Lamar Jackson stack. So you can see how that worked out nicely. I mean, it's totally reasonable value for Mark Andrews, but now they've got their Lamar Jackson stack, and I will have my Jalen Hurts, Dallas Goedert stack. So now you always want to have your quarterbacks stacked with at least one pass catcher, and really the only one I had left, the only reasonable one, was Dallas Goedert. But I like Dallas Goedert this year, given that the only Philly, the main Philly pass catcher is going to be, the only established one at least, is Devontae Smith, who I really like. But I mean, is Mekhi Lemon going to come in and do anything? They signed Hollywood Brown. He could do, who knows? Maybe I'll take a flyer on a super late round Hollywood Brown. But I've got a stack that I'm happy with in Jalen Hurts to Dallas Goedert. He hopefully will still rack up a bunch of touchdowns. And now I need to just keep hammering the wide receivers. So any wide receiver that looks reasonable here, I would be happy with Jalen Coker, although he just got drafted. I might need to take Stephon Diggs and just hope that he... are we on the clock? So Stephon Diggs just goes. Well, so I probably now am going to be out of luck unless you might just have to go by ADP. I just have to, do the ADP pick and take Jalen McMillan. So I'm really not so happy with the way the wide receivers have gone for this draft. I'm looking good at tight end and good at quarterback, just the way that the draft ended up. So yeah, I'm going to really need my top 3 wide receivers to carry me, and then just going to look for the multitude of wide receivers that I pick up in these next picks to carry, because I'm not going to be taking any more tight ends. I'm not going to be taking any more quarterbacks. Let's also take a look again at my roster to make sure that, or confirm. Yes, well, look at that. I did not consider the fact that Colson Loveland and Dallas Goedert, the Chicago Bears and Philly Eagles, have the same bye. So I probably do want to add a late tight end now. Probably won't be TJ Hawkinson. That's not late enough considering my real weak wide receivers here. I'm going to need to pick up now, let's say. So we're in round 13. These are 20 round drafts on DraftKings. So I've got 8 picks left. I'll be looking to get in these 8 picks probably 5 receivers, let's say 4 to 5 receivers, 2 to 3 running backs, and a tight end who does not have a week 10 bye week. So later rounds, this is looking like good value for Malik Willis. I'm surprised he's going this late. Again, we really real reach on Alvin Kamara. Alvin Kamara just is now confirmed to be returning to the Saints this year. Took a restructured contract. He was going around pick 170, 180. But yeah, I mean, who knows how. When you get news like this in fantasy in the offseason, then it completely throws off a player's draft position. People can reach for them thinking they might be good. Yeah, I thought my receivers are weak, but man, yeah, this team's looking real bad too. A lot of these teams are actually quite low on receivers. We've got, pretty running back heavy draft, it looks like. And so some of these teams, like this team with Matt Stafford, a stacked Matt Stafford with Puka, and then a Bryce Young, an unstacked Bryce Young is looking real weak. All right, my pick's coming up very soon. Are there any good receivers? Look, all right, so nothing wrong with taking a round one rookie at this point in the draft. Realistically, I'll probably just keep adding to my, try to keep adding at least. There goes Omar Cooper, makes sense. All right, so let's hope that Justin Jennings doesn't get taken. His name is not even. Okay, so let's go and complete the stack here. His name is Juwan Jennings, of course. I slipped my mind there. A lot going through my head. That's okay. So now I've got that's basically taking Juwan Jennings right at ADP and adds to now my Kyler Murray stack. So I've got a nice stack here: Justin Jefferson, Juwan Jennings, and Kyler Murray. Again, we can make it sort of a super stack if I add TJ Hawkinson. Again, I'm still going to be looking to add a late round receiver to my room here. I don't need any more quarterbacks. Yeah, I do need another running back. So if the value at Keaton Mitchell is there, I would take him. My pick 161. I also do like these. Well, not round one this year, round two rookie in Denzel Boston. I have ended up taking a lot of him, but I would be okay with that here. Very surprising to see somebody like Dylan Sampson go way ahead of Keaton Mitchell. With this sort of split and running backs are really going to dry up. I mean, look at this ADP value, average draft position of 141 at pick 161. That's really good value, unless there's some crazy news that I missed today. Then so be it, because that's excellent value. So we'll see if TJ Hawkinson comes around. I probably would pick him just from good value. Don't forget that it's not ideal, but tight ends can still slot into your flex slot if needed. So you can end up having weeks where you get 2 tight ends who score on your roster. I doubt Denzel Boston makes it back to me at my pick. What's my next pick? His ADP is 165. My next pick is 176. But hey, crazy to hear things with that do happen. We did get this crazy value on Keaton Mitchell. I should also add that it might be a bit odd to have Omarion Hampton and Keaton Mitchell here, but the Chargers did sign Keaton Mitchell, expect them to play together. So I mean, I expect this offense to be strong. It's not something I would normally target, but the value was there, and basically I'm secured that I would hope that always on a given week one of the two of them would make my lineup. So there goes TJ Hawkinson. This is a good value on Aranda Gadsden here. I could have taken him as well. So now I'll be looking for quite a late tight end. There's no backup tight ends on Minnesota I want here. So let's again. I'm going to keep looking at wide receiver and just going back to my rankings here. Next pick being at whatever I said it was going to be. Next pick is pick 176. So keeping that in mind in terms of ADP, let's do a quick ADP sort at this point. Yeah, Isaac Tesla, don't really like him. But he is one of those guys who's going to be better in best ball, which just means boom or bust touchdowns. And so I'll add him to the queue at least. And since I already do have Jameson Williams, there's some nice potential value there. And another receiver. Yeah, I mean, Adonai Mitchell is totally reasonable as well. He's rated higher than Tesla, but Tesla's ADP is like a full round earlier. I don't mind taking Jerry Jeudy either. Let's just go ahead and take that big stack, or the stack of Jameson Williams and Isaac Tesla. I want to keep taking these running backs. Now we're at the point in the draft where my early wide receivers were pretty weak. I didn't get my fourth wide receiver until round 10, which is not at all ideal. Normally, I'd like to have 5 wide receivers by that point, at least one more early. But that's okay. So now with this 2-4-7-2 split, I'll probably only look at adding a maybe last round or second last round tight end to make up for my my bye week mishap there. So yeah, that's a mistake on my part. That's the thing about these drafts, is that when you're on a 20-second pick clock, you can have a strategy coming in, but you got to be quick to react. And it's not even as easy as like trying to line up your picks in a queue, because you could line up your picks for, later on in the draft and then not click the button in time, and you end up drafting a guy you wanted to take in round 18 in round 13. I've definitely done that before. Terrence Ferguson has really moved up. Now I got 10 seconds to make this pick. Again, I'm just going to take the best receiver or running back available. However, I guess that would put me at Deebo Samuel, but let's take another boomer bust guy. Let's try and do something fun in Adonai Mitchell here. He was the next best guy at ADP. Sometimes it's good to do ADP, change things up a bit. I can't just always draft from the same rankings, or I'm going to end up with the same set of drafted players. And then, if all of them bust, then I just lose all of my entry fee. I should mention this was just a simple draft called the Hyperspeed 50k Tuddy. 50k is a total amount of money that went into the prize pool. 5 entry max, $7 entry. So a lot of these, the biggest flagship tournament on DraftKings is this one that you see right here, the $20 million millionaire, $30 million to first. The entry fee is $25, which is a little bit hefty. I'll probably do 1 or 2 of those this year just for fun. DraftKings has a buy one, get one free discount, so maybe I'll probably just use that and do 2 of them. But what I don't really like is the entrance. There's almost 1 million entrants into this, and you can enter 150 times this draft. So it's just like the people who've got the big payrolls, who are not me, big bankrolls, can just mass enter this 150 times, and you just really lower your odds down of winning. So it'll be fun to sort of toss in the lottery, pick at those. But I would much like these smaller tournaments where even throwing in a couple entries at a much smaller player pool can send you a longer way for sure. So if you look at the structure here, I've got 3 picks left. I'm probably looking at taking 1 to 2 running backs, 1 receiver, and 1 tight end. Maybe I'll look at taking like a guy like Hollywood Brown. Let's see if I can find just by this draft order I could go for Dontavian Wicks. I forgot that they signed him. So if his ADP is 190, if he falls to me, that would be some pretty good value. And so then I'd be totally fine to scoop him up there. I would say it's unlikely. Let's keep on scrolling down and seeing if we can find how far down it takes to find Hollywood Brown. It looks like Dontavian Wicks, though, is still there, and 2 picks for me. I bet somebody picks him up. It normally happens. Hollywood Brown is going real far. I may have to type this one in. Let's see. Hollywood Brown, he's like basically a last round pick. Would be totally fine for me. Then I would just pick him as a last round. He's like way down in the rankings here. So no problem. There goes AJ Barner. So look at that. Even though in the rankings, in my own rankings at least, Dontavian Wicks established run really doesn't like him, and that's totally fair. He'll probably he could very well do nothing. But just to add to that Philly stack that I have, I'll go ahead and take him. It is still good ADP value, getting him 10 picks past his ADP. So now I've rounded out with a bunch of basically wide receiver threes. I've got, well, I guess Adonai Mitchell. Who knows? Adonai Mitchell, certainly not the wide receiver 1, but he's the wide receiver 2 or 3 on this Jets team after Garrett Wilson, of course. We'll see where Omar Cooper ends up slotting in. It could take him a while to get going. Adonai Mitchell, deep ball guy too. So again, better in best ball. If you expect guys to catch deep balls and lots of touchdowns, but be completely random week to week, those are tough guys to draft in redraft, but if they're having their down weeks and score 0 points, well, they're not going to make your lineup in best ball. But on those weeks when they explode, then they're real good to have. So now let's take a look at what sort of value, if there's any sort of value I might be going for here at either tight end or running back. Now into these late picks, a lot of it ends up being personal preference. I do want to get if I don't really mind, sure, let's go ahead and take Nick Singleton as my running back. Another thing to when you start getting these late round picks. So again, I got these final 2 picks. I'll definitely take one tight end and then maybe a running back or a receiver. Given my running backs as Dowdle's my running back 3, I've got this Charger protection here, but again, that's not ideal. I probably will be done at wide receiver. I've got 2 quarterback stacks I'm happy with. I've got this 3-player stack: Jalen Hurts, Dallas Goedert, and Dontavian Wicks on Philly. I've got Justin Jefferson and Juwan Jennings on Minnesota. The sort of next level thing that you can think about doing is, since in these tournaments, all the money is in week 17. If I can find this Hyperspeed tournament again, and if you look at so the way it starts, you've got a 12-player pool. You have to be in the top 2 of that after 14 weeks. Round 1 is week 1 to 14 to survive. You move on, you have won $10 from your $7. So pretty much nothing. The top 2 and then a 10-player pool move on to the next round, which gets you $35, still relatively low, of course. And then you got to be top 1 out of a 10-player pool to advance to the final 28. And now everybody there makes at least $500 in first place to 1,000. So that's what you're really trying to do with your entry there. And is this my pick that I just missed? It could be. No, it's not. Okay. So one thing that you can look at to help make these final picks is the NFL Week 17 schedule. It's been shown that if you have Week 17 game stacks of teams that are playing against each other, and you really hope that game just goes off completely, it's like a big game, then you have the high scoring game at the end, and that can really optimize your Week 17 score. And so that means I really want to focus on who my quarterbacks are. The Vikings are playing the Jets. So actually with AD Mitchell here, I already managed a Week 17 game stack. A lot of the time that happens by chance. And the Chargers, who are the Chargers playing? All the best ball bros will memorize this. I'm looking at my other screen here. The Chargers are playing the Chiefs. So look at that. I actually already have Xavier. So by chance, I've managed to get this game stack. So the Week 17 game stacks. So I'm all covered there. I think I will now hold off on my last pick and to be tight end. And I'm going to let's go ahead and I will take DJ Giddens here, the upside backup running back on Indy. Why not? If he gets the pass catching work, then he can rack up some PPR points, and he's expected to be the RB2 on Indianapolis. He's a second-year RB. Hopefully, he is their running back too at this point in the draft. See by the rankings here, you've got guys like Ty Johnson ranked real high for his pass catching. Samaje Perine got a bunch of work last year. I like Keenan Allen because once he gets signed, it's pretty inevitable he'll get signed. His ADP will shoot way up, but that hasn't happened yet. So I do like taking him. I have taken a lot of him as like a real late round pick, but I really wanted to not go running back there, or to go running back there. My running backs were looking a little bit weak. So I need one of these sort of late flyers to help me out. And then again, we know that I need a tight end. If I look at the top tight ends by rankings, I do like Michael Mayer as on Vegas. He is the tight end 2, that's for sure. Tight end 2 on that team, with Brock Bowers being the clear tight end 1. But Michael Mayer was a top rated prospect, around two draft pick a couple of years ago in the real NFL. And who else do they have? They have Trey Tucker, who had some big games last year, but he's not a true wide receiver one. They signed Jalen Naylor, who was the wide receiver 3 for the Vikings. Now he's, well, maybe the wide receiver one. It's going to be between him and Trey Tucker. But what very well could happen is that the offense is, well, for sure just going to run through Brock Bowers. And then I'd expect Michael Mayer to be on the field a lot and still be able to, who knows, be even the number 2 or 3 catcher. So if the draft is now over, that went through real quick. That took about however long, 35 minutes, something like that, to complete the full draft. So these things go real quick when you're on a 20-second draft clock. Let's review my draft. Taking Justin Jefferson at the 8th pick overall is, I have no problem doing that. Although I do, in full PPR format, like to have Amon-Ra St. Brown over that. I think this is the first time I've taken Omarion Hampton. Normally I would have taken, I was actually thinking of taking Drake London here and going wide receiver heavy. Things could have ended up differently for me there. I probably would have ended up with like Kyren Williams, but I think things worked out okay. I've got a strong tight end, looking for that breakout with Colston Loveland here. Top 3 wide receivers, Jameson Williams is still a bit of a boom or bust guy. So is Xavier Worthy. Jalen McMillan could very well be the wide receiver 2 on Tampa now. Well, we'll see. That depends on Chris Godwin coming back and doing well. But Tampa Bay is not a team who runs a lot of 2 tight end sets, and I expect them to not either. So Jalen McMillan should still be on the field a lot. He was injured for almost all of last year, and when he came back, he had a couple big games. So really, out of all of these, bottom wide receiver 3s, I'm hoping that only one of them hits my lineup each week. So if I get a reasonable game out of one of these 5 guys each week, then I'm happy. I've got top 2, or let's say 2 of 3 running backs that I'm really relying on. I was able to take 2 quarterbacks relatively late, around 7 and 9. And then because they're both rushing quarterbacks with pretty high upside, and you expect Jalen Hurts to start all year unless something goes terribly wrong in Philly. You hope that Kyler Murray is expected to be the starter in Minnesota. So I'm pretty set, hopefully, there. And then some late round flyers on some hopeful RB2. Well, Nick Singleton's probably an RB3. He's more of like an injury away guy. But if Tony Pollard gets injured, they'll probably want to see what they can get out of their round 4 running back selection from this year. And then, I had to get a tight end who didn't have a week 10 bye. So that was the reason for Michael Mayer, but I don't mind Michael Mayer as a potential flex play in this slot either. Looking at some of these other teams, no team's done anything particularly crazy. Every team actually has 3 tight ends, which is interesting, and 2 4 tight end teams. So that's, I probably would not go 3 tight ends when I have a real early tight end, Brock Bowers, but looking at their board, it's just Jake Tongas. So whatever, that's a random flyer. Trey McBride, same. Okay, so I wouldn't want to take Trey McBride, Travis Kelce, and Chig Okonkwo. These are both reasonable sort of mid-ish late tight ends. You probably went too high on the position there. Same thing with 3 quarterbacks. Once you get Drake May and Jaden Daniels, 2 early quarterbacks, you don't want to then also take Jared Goff, in my opinion. That's too much draft capital spent on quarterback and tight end. And then look at the receiver. The number 2 wide receiver is Michael Wilson. Number 3, Jaden Reed on this team. I mean, this person hammered wide receiver late because they really had to, but they're looking pretty weak at wide receiver. Strong at running back though, so we'll give them that. But anyways, there you have it. There is the DraftKings Hyperspeed Tuddy. I guess that's what do they call it here? The Best Ball 50k Tuddy. First video in the Best Ball 101 series. This is a standard or a little bit quicker, I should say, PPR draft in the DraftKings platform. We'll be back to cover the next 2 platforms later this week with Underdog coming up next. So thanks all for watching.